Hey guys, what's up? So today I'm going headless, so stay tuned. Alright guys, so what I have for you today is a headless 8-string guitar. This is a Legator Ghost multi-scale 8-string guitar with no headstock. And this is the first time I've ever actually had the opportunity to really dive in and play one of these. I don't mean a Legator, I don't mean this particular model, I mean a headless guitar. And so there are some interesting things that I figured out about this style of guitar, some of which I like, some of which I'm kind of about. But either way, we're going to talk about it today, and we're going to listen to what this sounds like. So first up, I gotta give a shout out to zZounds.com for sending this out to me to check out. I'll go ahead and link down below to my personal gear page with zZounds.com. You click on that link and you'll find everything that I either am looking to get on the channel, I already own, or things that I consistently use. You'll find like the strings that I use, you'll find some speaker types that I have in some of my setup here, some of these amps, and a couple of these guitars. So yeah, gotta give a big shout out to those guys. They sent this out to me, and they sent it along with that Schecter Tau 8 that I looked at last week. And I kind of got a chance to kind of do a little bit of back and forth between, you know, standard 8-string with a headstock with tuning pegs versus this thing, which has none of that. And honestly, the only reason why I have this particular brand, this Legator brand, is because, you know, I wasn't even sure that zZounds.com actually had headless guitars. But then I remembered that not that long ago, Sinister Gates released his own Schecter style of headless guitar. And as I started digging around, I was like, oh, they have one of these. Looks pretty cool. I want to try it out. And I kind of felt like these were somewhat of a all the rage a few years ago. I felt like these were popping up on more YouTube channels, more people kind of playing them. It seemed like this was like the most comfortable desk guitar that you could ever have. The way it kind of sits in the lap, you know, kind of more of like that classical style. And I'll say this guitar has that going on too, although this particular shape isn't super great for the lap. It kind of digs in a little bit. I think the Strandbergs have an extra cut that seems a bit more ergonomic. Either way, when you get this guitar and you like hold on to it, you feel like there's sort of like this space age modern technology that's, you know, just falling into your lap that doesn't feel like a regular guitar. But one of the first things about this guitar that kind of threw me for a loop was the tuning mechanism. Now, I've owned Floyd Rose, I've owned Evertune guitars, and unlike those two systems, this one requires a little bit more finesse to get it right with the pitch that you're trying to go for. So what this does is basically you sit the ball end down into this little slot, you tighten it until it won't come out, and then you string it through this plate on the headstock here with these Allen keys. And what I found is you kind of have to give a good amount of pull it taut, then tighten down this, and then start to tighten up to get your string into pitch. Now, one trick I will disclose here for you guys: if you're going to use this kind of system, don't cut the string right away after you lock this down. In fact, a couple strings on the high end of here I had to unlock, pull a little bit more taut, then lock again in order to get it to tune up to the right pitch. Because once you get all the way, you know, once you start to screw this all the way forward and you start to tighten up, you know, that string, it was pretty quick to get to the end of the line before I was even up to the pitch that I wanted, especially on these unwound strings. So one of the things to be aware of is when you go to restring one of these, which I had to do because I immediately broke a string like the first week I had this thing, you have to, you know, get your string kind of in there, and then when you have it fed through here, you're going to want to kind of give it a decent amount of tension to kind of pull it taut enough to when you lock this down, you have enough leeway to kind of tighten this down to get it up to pitch. And right now I have this all tuned down like a whole half step with the drop tuning on the 7th string here, and then I have this low D sharp E flat to round it out, similar to that 8 string that I had the week before. But beyond the learning curve that exists with this tuning system, with this stringing system, everything else about this guitar is very comfortable. It's actually very easy to play this guitar, especially due to the fan fret nature of the fretboard. I think people who are a little bit intimidated by the concept of the multi-scale or the fan fret, once they get one in their hands and they start to play on it for a little while, you start to realize how just well balanced and comfortable the whole concept really is. Now, the multi-scale or the fan fret on this particular guitar isn't super extreme. I believe the neutral fret here is like the 7th fret or 8th fret. Yeah, maybe 7th fret. And some fan fret guitars, the neutral fret's all the way up higher and you have a way wider fan. I think this is 26.7 inch scale on the low end and then a 25.5 on the high end. So not super extreme, but very comfortable. The other thing that's pretty cool about this guitar and very noticeable, and the reason why I have a strap actually on the guitar today, is that it actually has like no neck dive. Like there's just nothing. Like it feels so just natural to hold on to. Like without the headstock, it sits the way that you would imagine most guitars are meant to sit. And I've had some guitars that sit just fine with headstock on them. These guitars, I imagine almost every headstock or headless guitar is like this. They're just like the negative of head or of neck dive. Like they just don't have any of it. So that's really nice. And more specific to this guitar, it's got this cool purple flame veneer on top. It has its own proprietary active pickups from Legator. I'm not really here to review the Legator guitar itself. I will say, just as somebody who's getting into a headless guitar, I know these kind of run kind of on the cheaper side. I think this is like $999.99. Yeah, so basically $1,000 on zZounds. Relatively inexpensive for an 8-string headless guitar if you poke around and you look at like the Strandbergs or some of the Kiesels or some of the other guitar brands. They're running upwards of $2,000 or more. I think this is actually a pretty good budgetary kind of one to go for because this feels like $1,000 guitar easily. So let's just quickly get into playing some tones here with this guy, just because that's what I do. So today I have the PV6505 Plus. This is a made in USA model, an older one. I have my smattering of boost pedals here. I'm gonna forego a clean tone just because these active pickups, they sound okay with cleans. But I'm on the green channel with the crunch engaged. I'm gonna have the Lick Lamb Audio King and Yellow up here, and I'm just gonna chunk around a little bit on that channel, then we'll move over to the red channel. And I'll give you my thoughts on how this kind of compares to just a regular 8-string and what I would, ultimately end up doing if I were in the market for an 8-string. So here's what I got with my, green channel with the crunch on and the boost on. Yeah, I mean, it does the thing. Active pickups, they sound pretty good. One of the things about playing this guitar that's obvious in the hand, especially with the multi-scale, is just kind of how loose, not loose, but there's just a bit more of that slacky feeling with this guitar. than say that Tau 8 that I was playing last week. One of the reasons, that one has a little bit more of a scale length, and it's a straight scale, so the strings just feel a little bit more firm in the hand. But even so, just the ability to kind of jump around to the different strings and have them have a looser feel, tension all around, I think that's actually kind of a nice thing. Shout out to Legator and their ability to put together a decent active set of pickups. I really like the neck pickup when it sounds way different from the bridge pickup. Actually has some functionality, and for like a lead tone, that neck pickup does pretty well. And then you go over to the bridge and it's just that crunchy, just tight. The other thing about the multi-scale aspect of this versus playing on a standard 8-string, I feel like my hand just more comfortably fits and my wrist doesn't have to quite contort itself. I have pretty small hands, and so it just is a really comfortable thing to play. And the fact that this thing sits the way it does, with the strap on or off, this is a very ergonomic thing, and I think that's really what these headless guitars really excel at. I think after having this for about a month, kind of going back and forth with the standard 8-string and then the headless, it's the ergonomics of the whole thing that really kind of elevate it. And I think that if people are willing to kind of play and deal with the kind of nuances that come along with this particular string and bridge system, I think they'll get a lot of benefit out of this, especially if they're a player that needs to have a little bit more ergonomic freedom. If you have like arthritis issues, if you have like issues with like sciatica and you have to sit and you need to stand a lot, or you just have something that needs to just kind of feel like it's on you without being like on you, I think a headless guitar is actually a pretty cool thing. All right, so I've moved on to the red channel now on the 6505. No boost pedal on because I don't really need it, and so here we go. One thing I'm finding myself doing, and I think it's just because it's an 8-string, having to look down and remember where exactly I am on the fretboard. I think I covered this last week with the 8-string stuff. It's kind of a learning curve when you're going from 6 to 7 to 8, and I like playing these more traditional shapes. Especially for like crunchy and clean stuff. And then if you're doing leads, you have to remember that if you're using the standard tuning, your hands, when they go up. See, just right there, I did it. I jumped up the half step early because my fingers want to do that a little bit earlier because I'm not used to that extra string. So you got to kind of reorient your hand a little bit. So really, you just got to be aware of kind of what your fingers are doing. All right, so the last thing to address, is the headless design something worth seeking out, worth having? I would say it's definitely worth trying. Even if you're a little bit like on the fence about, you know, the look, the judgment you might get for, playing one of these, I would say pick one up and check it out, especially if you're going to go for an extended range guitar. If you're going to go for like a 7 or 8 string and you're looking for something that's just really comfortable and a little bit more, I don't know, I would say it softens the curve a bit when it comes to learning kind of the feel and the playability of moving to something like a 7 or an 8 string. But with that said, I'm not the biggest fan of this particular bridge system, this particular micro adjustment kind of thing. It's cool once you get it, set up and dialed in, but I will say the string changes on this aren't quite as nice as a guitar with a headstock. Will I be running out to grab one of these to have permanently? Probably not, unless I really, really feel like I need to go that route. I'm perfectly comfortable with having, guitars with headstocks. It's more what I'm used to. If I find a good deal on one of these, especially if it's like a Strandberg or something with a little bit more of a high-end pedigree behind it and a little bit more of an ergonomic thing going on, maybe I'll go for it one day. But for now, I'm just going to enjoy playing this while I have it. And hopefully you guys can, take something from this, go forward. If you're looking at a headless guitar, don't be afraid, try it out. It's actually kind of fun, and they're actually pretty comfortable. So I'll leave you guys with that, and I'm going to switch back over to the green channel because I'm really liking the way the Lick Layer Audio King in Yellow is going through this green channel with the crunch on. It just sounds really nice.